Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pink and Channels, and we're here today to get some insight on a very, very late January deadline day signing indeed. I'm your host, Connor Southwell, joined by Chief Manchester City writer at the Manchester Evening News, Simon Bajkowski. So thank you for joining me, Simon. Let's start with the deal itself, because it was very late, and I think most of us were expecting him to end up in Swansea, and then as in sort of true deadline day fashion, a U-turn, a twist, and he ends up at Norwich City. It was a hectic one.
Yeah. I think the Swansea interest had kind of been around for a while, and then certainly sort of was told on Sunday. So yeah, the day before deadline day, City were at the Emirates playing Arsenal, and Jacob Wright wasn't there, and it was like, oh, Jacob Wright's in Swansea. So it was like, it kind of felt like 80-90% done, and then started getting a few panicked messages from Swansea fans on Monday lunchtime, Monday afternoon, and it seemed like a change of mind. I don't think it was the case. I think it was the case that Jacob had a fair few clubs interested in him for the month, and I don't think Norwich was kind of a panicked decision in that sense, but he certainly made his mind up on the last possible day he could.
Yeah, which always seems the way, doesn't it, with players? I mean, I guess the first point really to ask is what can you tell us about him? Because that's what sort of we're eager to know. He's clearly someone who is highly rated. I mean, I'm sure we've all read now the interview that he did speaking about Pep Guardiola and how he maybe convinced him not to head out on loan after the summer. What can you tell us about him and maybe his journey at Manchester City so far?
Yeah, he's a really nice player to watch. He's kind of exactly what you would want, or what City would want from a holding midfielder, really. Normally sort of playing either 6 or 8. He sort of controls the ball and controls the game with his tempo. He's passing. He's the kind of, in a similar mold to sort of a Rodri, where you can sort of control the game that way with short passes without necessarily needing to take too many risks. And yeah, Pep wanted him to stay this season, made the decision that he thought he could be useful. And circumstances have kind of run away, and mean that sort of the characteristics of a midfield that City need now are not necessarily what Wright is. So it's not to say he can't be useful in the future and can't be a very good player right now. He's just not what City need, and he wants to play regular football. And I don't think there are many tougher environments than the Championship. I know the Championship is viewed as sort of one of the top 5 leagues from City's point of view. If you're sending a player anywhere in Europe, the Championship is right up there.
Yeah, and he's an interesting one, isn't he? Because 19, and you look at that as a really important age, really, to get out there and to start playing games. And I guess it's that balancing act for Manchester City, isn't it? Because they've got so much young talent, and it's about balancing game time with where obviously pathways to them to get into the first team, but also picking the right club as well. All of that to sort of juggle can be very difficult. So I guess the fact that and clearly Norwich have Callum Doyle there as well, so there's a pre-existing relationship. I'm sure that probably would have helped matters. I mean, would Manchester City have looked into sort of style of play and those type of elements when sort of earmarking clubs for players to go out online?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fundamental to what they do. I mean, City have a whole network of clubs in the City football group that they like to send players out to, because it's about control, right? If you have a club and you're sending a player out on loan, you want him to be in a stable environment. You want them to be in a positive environment that plays the right kind of football that will help that player develop. And I'm not at all saying that Swansea wasn't, but I think if they needed any evidence that Norwich was, they only needed to look at how Callum's done this season, and how well Norwich are doing in the league this season. So it is absolutely fundamental to how City treat their loan policies that the club sort of brings on players stylistically, but also, brings them on as footballers, and a horrible cliche, as sort of people as well.
I mean, looking at obviously his career so far, what is it, four senior appearances? I know he's played a bit in the FL Trophy as well for the under-21s. That's always a little bit of a grey area. Do they class as senior appearances or not? But
yeah,
obviously not. But I mean, he's played in the Champions League, the FA Cup, obviously the Carabao Cup. He's been in some Premier League squads. I guess to do that as a 19-year-old under Pep Guardiola, that is sort of backs up what you're saying, doesn't it? It sort of backs up how highly he's sort of thought of at Manchester City.
Yeah, he is, and he's seen as someone who can, who is ready for first team football. He came on in the Carabao Cup game at Spurs in October, and he was really quite promising. But like I say, it's just kind of the season has definitely got away from Man City, but it's kind of got away from Wright sort of getting the opportunities that he might have got otherwise if things were going either better or in a different way. But he's someone, I would class him similar to someone like a Tommy Doyle or a James McAtee when they both went to Sheffield United. He should be ready to sort of make an immediate impact. It might take him a few weeks or whatever to settle into the rhythm of the team and the league. But I think there used to be a sort of a stereotype that there was some truth to, of sort of players in City's academy and the top Premier League academies kind of not being ready for proper EFL football. And I think that has changed in the last few years, and they're now kind of producing players that are ready to play and are up for the battle and the slog that is the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's clearly crucial to obviously what Norwich City need as they try and push for the playoffs. I mean, looking at him sort of positionally, and you look at sort of the areas that he's played. Obviously, you mentioned him being a defensive midfielder. I mean, transfer marks, which I'm sure you guys use as well for sort of trying to find out a little bit about new players. They sort of indicated that in the academy he's played a little bit as a right back, as a centre back. I mean, clearly his position is a defensive midfielder, but has he kind of shown that versatility? Have you seen that versatility from him of maybe being capable to play a few other positions in the back line?
Yeah, he can. I think his strongest positions are 6 and 8, really. He was very fortunate that when he was in the under-16s at City in sort of 2022-23, that was when Ilkay Gundogan was doing his coaching badges and trained the under-16s as part of that. And there's quite a nice video that you can probably find somewhere of Gundogan coaching Wright, and sort of Wright being picked out as like the special one that everything went through kind of thing. And he has, certainly taken a lot of lessons from Ilkay and tried to sort of take what Ilkay has in his game, that ability to sort of ghost into the box and also carry the ball at the right time. So fundamentally, I think those are his two strongest positions. But look, most players at City are taught how to play a number of ways, and also, the positions are only kind of like a starting point for where they end up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in terms of, obviously, you mentioned maybe this season getting away from him a little bit, but what do you feel sort of his future is at Manchester City? Because clearly, as part of this agreement, there's an option that could obviously become an obligation under certain criteria. So that does create a little bit of uncertainty maybe for what his future looks like at Manchester City. But do you think they'll still, if let's say, it doesn't maybe go as planned and he does end up back at Manchester City in the summer, do you still feel that the people inside the building there would see a future for him, Pep Guardiola and the others, of course, around that footballing department?
Yeah, I think so. It's a very, I don't want to say a very forgiving environment, because that would suggest that, he'd done something wrong or something, but it's very much, you have to prove yourself every week. And just because you've been the best player in a season, you come back for pre-season and you're not treated any differently than anyone else. Like, the places are always up for grabs. So, if Wright doesn't end up moving to Norwich permanently, then he'll go back in pre-season and he'll get a fair crack at it. I think what he kind of needed this season at City to come on was a stable environment in the team and a stable team. and they haven't had that, and they've had the case where they're sort of being overrun physically, and you know, I wouldn't say that either physicality or pace are his two greatest attributes, and so he's not had the chance of a look in, and he's not really had the conditions when he would come into the team to thrive, because he's not had that. But were that to be different in 5 or 6 months or whatever, if he came back, then yeah, he absolutely would have a chance. But also, if he did come back in summer, I think he would also have plenty of clubs interested in taking him on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just obviously final couple. I mean, you mentioned there perhaps maybe the elements of his game that aren't quite as polished. I was actually going to ask you about that. What are the elements that maybe from a Norwich City perspective they'll be looking at and really trying to get their teeth into, and really trying to coach and develop and take on to that next level, obviously coupled with the fact and exposure to senior championship football?
Yeah, I think sort of the game at Spurs in the cup this season was nice, because he properly got stuck in. You know, he's always been a very nice footballer to watch and setting the tempo of the game and everything like that. But you also need someone who can scrap a bit, and I think he does have that. But you only really know how much someone is up for it when they get into the thick of playing 2 games a week, every week, and also, yeah, how well you can control the pace of games and things like that. So I think, like I say, he might not settle immediately because he's not played loads of football this season. But if he gets into his rhythm, then, you know, I think he will be. There's no reason why he can't be as effective as say Doyle and McAtee were in the league.
And just finally from me, obviously we've kind of mentioned Callum Doyle. It would be remiss of me not to ask you about him. He's had a really good season at Norwich City, been a key part of what they've done in 2 roles, really, left back and centre back. So I guess mainly Norwich City fans are going to want to know what Manchester City's plans are for him, and whether there's any prospect of them getting him back in the summer, albeit it feels very slim now, that the quality and obviously the level. This is 4th loan or 3rd, 4th loan at Championship level. It feels like he's probably ready to take that next step, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was surprised that City went out and bought 2 very young centre backs, because if you're Callum Doyle, you're probably thinking, right, what does that say for me? I mean, I've been nothing but impressed whenever I've seen him play, and all 4 of his loans, and the first loan to go out when he did so young, to go to a big club like Sunderland and like really test himself, was so impressive. And then he's just built on that every year, and that as well is so hard as a footballer when you're coming through and when you're going on loan to different clubs to keep showing improvement. I know he was injured at Leicester for summer last season, but still, I think he's surely playing Premier League football next year somewhere, but I'm not sure if City will take him on. It depends with City, because they've got 4 senior centre backs who have all had countless injury problems this season. So it's kind of like, how many can still be relied upon for next year? That is a conversation that they've not quite reached an outcome on. So maybe Doyle can push his way in, but if not, I think he will be looking to be playing Premier League next season, whether that is at Norwich or somewhere else.
Yeah, let's certainly hope we're talking about Norwich City in a Premier League context. That would be lovely. Simon, thank you very much for your time and for your insight. I think we're all really excited to see how Jacob Wright gets on at Norwich City, and obviously could make his debut this weekend against Derby County. So we'll see how he gets on. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll of course see you again very soon.